We are all set.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This is a call to order for Bridgeport Board of Education special meeting on Thursday, May 4th at 6 p.m. via Teams. We are also streaming on live. Also, we have our board members present. I don't see Mr. Benahan to go over who's present here at the meeting, unless Ms. Baptiste Perez would like to do it. Do a roll call, see who's here for the record.
Sybil Allen, not here. Albert Benahan, not here.
Present.
Up, there we go. I'm going to pass it to the secretary.
All right. Mr. Secretary, would you like to pick up where she left off at?
I heard she said Albert Benahan. I said present. Sybil Allen. Miss Akisha.
I'm here.
Mr. David.
Present.
Michael Macaron. Joseph Sokovic.
Present.
And Mr. Robert Traver.
Present.
All right. So let's get right into the agenda tonight. For those that are viewing, we are going over the results. We have a few different items on our agenda for tonight. We have the search firm present with us this evening as well. Right after I go through item number 1, I will turn it over to Dr. Ferry to finish out the rest of the conversation for tonight. Ms. Arlene, is there anybody for public comment?
I'm checking right now. I'm having issues with the microphone going in and out, so I do apologize. Give me one moment.
We will wait.
I do not have anything.
All right, thank you. I am going to read off the items that Dr. Ferry has sent to me, and then he can take over from here just for the record. Tonight, we will be going over the update on stakeholder meetings and superintendent surveys, reviewing the number of candidates, identifying dates to present candidates to the board, and then lastly, identify dates for semifinal interviews and candidate community forums for finalists. At this moment, the floor is yours, Dr. Ferry. Please take it away.
Well, thank you very much. And I know that Dr. Shelley Holt is with me as well. I know that Mr. Copeland is intending to get on. I think he's having a little bit of a challenge getting on, but he'll be with us hopefully. So I'll take it from here. And what we want to do is thank you very much and thank the community of Bridgeport for all of the meetings we had and the work that the folks in your district did, particularly Tim, for helping set up all of our Zoom meetings. Teams meetings, and all of the individuals throughout Bridgeport who participated. And we had some wonderful sessions with outstanding community members and folks from the district, and it was very enlightening. And we asked 4 questions regarding to the first 2 questions helping us recruit candidates, which were tell us all the great things about the community and tell us the things that we can share regarding the school district with the candidates. And then we'll go through what some of the challenges are that we see and the characteristics. And we basically just developed themes with those issues. But what we heard, and I want to really emphasize this, tremendous amount of passion in the city of Bridgeport. The community, everyone that spoke to us, there's a lot of passion, so much pride in the community. We worked and spoke with all these folks. Good. Now, Mr. Copeland, get in there and jump in. So you can take it from here because you did the narrative on the stakeholders and the summary. But let me just, before I kick it to Mr. Copeland, I want to just say how impressed I am with everyone I spoke to and how much they want to see the next superintendent succeed in your district, in the city, and how important it is to them in terms of the work we're doing. And also how much they want to collaborate with the new superintendent to make sure that the students' needs are met. So, Mr. Copeland, you want to jump in?
Well, how you stole my thunder here. What did you, how far did you get?
That's as far as I got, so go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you all, and I apologize. I had a hard time checking into Teams. Before I give a summary, let me begin by, on behalf of the team, thanking Mr. Graham.
Uh-oh, froze up. Well, let me keep going until he can get it figured out. So he's thanking Mr. Grassi because it was a lot of work for him to coordinate all these sessions, and it was very. Now
Am I
you're
back?
Yes,
Okay,
you are.
Great. So, just an overview of the stakeholder. As Dr. Ferry was saying, and as I opened with, in terms of passion, pride, and people, it was overwhelming. The kind of strengths that the Bridgeport community saw in their school. Over and over again, people talked about pride. The thing that came through a number of the stakeholders was the sense of support people show. More than one time, people said, if somebody needs help in Bridgeport, there's going to be somebody there to help them. There's going to be somebody in the community. There's going to be somebody in the district. Outreach and support of people came through over and over again. A lot of times folks come to stakeholder meetings and they want to share, what we need next and what's wrong. And if you prod them a little bit, boy, did they open up. We've got a great downtown. We've got restaurants. We've got theater. We've got places that people from other places want to come and enjoy Bridgeport. And that really helps when you're looking to recruit people and you're saying, hey, if you don't know this community or if you don't know the communities.
He's out again.
When we asked what's going on in the schools, people talked about the different programs, the aquaculture program, the use of the area near the water, the strong diversity in the school system, and the fact that the teachers in the system are committed to the school system. Teachers came out and said, "Look, we're here because we've got we feel it's a calling to work in an urban district and to support kids who may not get supported anywhere else." In terms of challenges, boy, did people come out and talk about the lack of funding, and talked about the fact that Hartford and New Haven get funded more than Bridgeport, even though Bridgeport numbers are higher. And I've done some sort of research, and it really comes down to there really does seem to be a need to get people at the state capitol to understand that they're not doing well by the people of Bridgeport. And that just from independent folks have said that needs to be there. Also talked about the fact that with diversity comes a challenge. I think it was 88 different languages are spoken. And that's a plus, but it's also, well, we need to provide the support for the kids who speak those different languages. So those challenges are there. They spoke about the challenges of losing teachers to neighboring districts. And this leads into what the new superintendent needs to bring is an ability to recruit and retain teachers in the Bridgeport community. Let them grow here. Let's grow our own talent. The characteristics of the new superintendent, they need to be decisive, but also collaborative. Work with the different groups that are there. Is said, tough skin. You're going to be criticized, but you need to be able to be transparent, explain your decisions. One of the things that came through, and in the initial interviews I've had with people, is I've said Bridgeport wants somebody who's going to be there for the long run. Bridgeport does not want somebody who's going to come in to make a name for themselves so that they can go somewhere else. So if that's what you're looking to do, please don't do that to Bridgeport. Bridgeport needs some stability in their superintendent, and they need some strength. Also, the fact that with the turnover of superintendents, I want to make sure that there's not a constant start and stop. Figure out what's good, stay with what's good, and then work from there. And those were the main characteristics that jumped out. We had about 200 people who filled out the survey, and I think you can see a lot of those same themes and issues that came through. I hope that gives an adequate executive summary of what I know the board has had a chance to take a look at over the last several days.
If I could add one more thing, it's the under the characteristics is the having very astute political skills, which is,
Yes.
and Mr. Copeland kind of alluded to that, particularly with political
Absolutely.
advocating for the district at the state level, but also political skills within the city of Bridgeport itself. Does any board member have any questions?
Yeah, I was gonna do that, open it up to the board to hear any or speak on any of the feedback that was provided tonight. Just want to remind you all that this information has also been provided in the portal for you to review and to consume if you haven't had an opportunity to do that. Just want to let you know, Dr. Fair, we also have one new board member here. His name is Mr. David Jellum. So he's new. So he's, probably going to, need some time catching up on the entire process. But I just wanted to let you know we just recently filled the seat. And you've already met Mr. Traber, I believe. Yes, Mr. Traber? Yep. So just want to let you know that we have a new board member. But I'll, at this moment, start calling on board members to give any feedback or thoughts. Just keep in mind that he has quite a few other areas that need to be covered. So if you can just keep your comments, at least to the point and short so that he can continue with his presentation. I saw Mr. Sokolovic first.
Yes, thank you. I'm kind of surprised, a little bit surprised that it didn't make it to the top of the thing. You did mention local political savviness, but the main important thing is this, and this needs to be emphasized. I'm sure none of the board members will disagree when I say that the biggest part of our underfunding is a local responsibility. We are also the last in per pupil expenditures in the entire 169 states. So it's going to be more important for that new superintendent to have local political skills. Now, the state is important as well, and they could do their part, but the bigger proportion of our funding shortfall is from the city contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Sokolovic. Mr. Benahan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to say thank you, guys. I see the report. I'll keep looking the report, amazing. But I just want to be clear here that I agree that in the last comment you said that we want our superintendent to stay here for, I'm talking about forever, but if they can stay forever, much better. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody to stay here, take care, and care about our students, staff, parents, and community. And that's very important. That's one of the priorities we want, and I hope they stay, the time. I know it's not going to be easy. Things go up and down. We're not perfect, only God, but we want somebody we can work together and care about Bridgeport. I just want to clear that. But I would say thank you for your amazing report, everything, and it was amazing. I mean, thank you. I want to just say thank you. You guys did an amazing job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benahan. And now I'll just go down the list and just call board members just to make sure you have an opportunity to share your thoughts on this particular section. Ms. Kashmir?
Yes, hi. Thank you again for the report. Awesome job. Just one question I have. On page 12, you have the heading of religious leaders. And then on page 13, same heading, religious leaders, but different information up under there. So I just wanted to know, are those two separate religious leaders groups?
Yes, I can respond to that.
Okay.
I was assigned for those meetings, and I had one meeting, but I think 8 religious leaders could not make that meeting. So I asked Tim to schedule another meeting with those other religious leaders. So it was 2 groups that I met with, and the emphasis was a little different in the two. That's why you see two reports there. But
That's what I needed. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
But they were all awesome. Awesome.
Thank you. Ms. Baptiste Perez?
No questions.
All right. Mr. Traber?
Just a slight disagreement with Mr. Sokolovic. The state funding is the largest part of what we're missing. The city has been more negligent, that's where I agree with him, in its underfunding. But the largest money we get is from the state. So it is both parties who are only too fond to point the finger at each other and say it's their fault, like a bunch of children, and meanwhile our children are suffering. So the city has been shortchanging us and the state. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Traber. Mr. Jellum?
No questions for me at the moment, but thank you. Great report.
All right. I guess for me, I think I'm the last one. I don't think I'll see anybody else. For me, I do appreciate, I received quite a few phone calls from not from the survey, but from the first stakeholder, community forum. I'll say that, not stakeholders. And it was really good, positive feedback. They felt that a lot of the stuff that was, that they had an opportunity to share their thoughts, their concerns. Of course, community leaders and individuals that were there obviously are going to see differently based off of what role they hold within the community, whether that's the public school sector or the community sector. But they did feel that there was enough opportunity for them to say what they wanted to say and to feel like they were being heard. So that's the feedback that I got. And I read through the surveys, and I appreciate those that did actually, participate in it. And, for any parent or any community leader that's listening, I hope as we continue the superintendent search that we won't just have 200 people to participate, that for every parent and for every parent that has a child in our district, that you will participate as well, so that, this will help Dr. Ferry and his team do the process well, but also to feel supported moving forward. But I definitely appreciate the work that has been done and to hear the community's response to it. So I appreciate that. And I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Ferry.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. So the next agenda item is to review where we are with the number of applicants. And we're not going to give specific information in terms of who, but we're going to talk about numbers and tell you about what we're doing. And then I'll come up with a date in terms of when we can present the applicants who we believe meet the criteria for Bridgeport. So we've reviewed and have, at the closing date, 19 fulfilled applications, 19 applicants that submitted applications for the position, which is around what we've been getting for superintendent searches. So it's not unusual, 19. The key thing is that we have quality. So in reviewing the 19, we've identified 9 individuals that we are going to do some deep vetting on, so that we're going to make calls. We're going to call those candidates. We're going to check with their references. And then we are going to circle back, the 3 of us, and meet and determine how many of those 9 should we ask to complete the video that we talked about with the 3 questions, and also which of those 9 we're going to do the deep background check on for financial, criminal, and educational credentials. So that's going to take us about, if we're going to do this right and do it deeply like we want to, that's going to take us about 2 weeks. So we'd like to circle back with you one night, hopefully during the week of the 15th of May.
All right, can everyone look at their calendars? And I know we have staff on to just to make sure we don't have any standing meetings, because I know committees still will be meeting, but if we need to move a committee around to fit in this particular meeting, we should definitely do that because we don't want too much time to go without one. So,
Preferably, if we can do something on, Mr. Copeland and Dr. Holt, I don't know if I haven't checked with you, but maybe the 17th or 18th. I know that's a Wednesday or a Thursday.
Excuse me, may I speak?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Miss Arlene. I think her mic may have went out again. Miss
Can
Arlene?
you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. So looking at the calendar for the week of May 15th through the 19th to 15th, there isn't anything on the calendar as of yet. On the 16th, there isn't anything on the calendar. On the 17th, there's a governance meeting. And the 18th and 19th, there isn't anything on the calendar.
So if possible, if we could do the 18th, that would be great.
The 18th may need to work. How does everyone feel on this call about the 18th? Any objections?
Works for me.
Yes, Mrs.
There's a students and families committee meeting on that night, or am I Mr. Albert? No?
No, that 18 is not student and family. Actually,
Okay, sorry, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Traber, is that good for you? Ms. Baptiste Perez?
Sorry, I had to step away from my computer. What was the date again?
May 18th.
Doesn't conflict with me.
Okay. Mr. Jellam, does the 18th conflict with you? All right. If anything, if it does, the good thing is this meeting is on Teams. So we will, Miss Arlene, if we can write that date down. Is the 6 o'clock good, Mr. Ferry, like this time, 6 o'clock on a Thursday?
18th, 6 o'clock. That would be perfect.
Okay. All right, so
Okay.
board members, please save that date. Miss Arlene will save that date, and I'll work with Mr. Ferry and Tim to set up if there needs to be any agenda items, but we'll make sure that the Board of Ed gets that information. So date is set for that.
Ms. Brown, I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
Can we present the candidates and the videos, since at this particular time for the candidates, it is confidential? Can this meeting, when we're presenting candidates, be in closed session? The presentation of the videos and the references and so on of the candidates?
I believe so. I'm not sure how that's done on Teams. I know we had an issue before. It may mean we need to switch platforms, but I can ask. Mr. Sakova, I saw your hand.
Yeah, we wouldn't have it as a special meeting. We could have it as a, what's this thing called? The search committee.
Okay,
The committee
got
as a whole
it.
on that, and we're covered under the confidentiality for that.
Got
Okay.
it. So hold on, Mr. Fair. My question would be to potentially Sam or Miss Arlene. We could still meet on this platform without it streaming, correct?
Well, is this going to be an online meeting or an in-person meeting?
It will be online.
Yes, but I won't be able to. You have to be careful who you invite to the meeting, because I won't be able to stop that. The only thing I could control and stop is what's on YouTube.
Got it.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
We can send you and do this meeting in closed session via the McPherson and Jacobson Zoom meeting account.
Okay. That
And
would be
this
better.
way, because we're going to want, and I'm starting to learn more and more about Teams, but I'm going to want to be able to share my screen and be the host so I can show you the videos, and it will be much less clumsy if I do it via Zoom. So, Ms. Brown, I would send the Zoom meeting invitation to you, and then you could forward it to the board members.
Okay, so board members, just make sure you have access to Zoom. I believe you can upload it, or we can talk to IT to get Zoom on an actual tablets that you have. But if you have your own specific Zoom account, that could work too. Mr. Sokolovic, and then I'll go to Dr. Shelley. Go ahead, Mr. Sokolovic.
Question, we're gonna have unique links, or is it going to be just general links? Because nobody should share the link. Just not that.
He can make it private. Like,
It's the link that I'm gonna share to you, and you shouldn't share it with anyone.
correct.
And I'll know who's on.
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
Great point of clarification, though. Thank you.
Dr. Shelley, your hand is up.
I think she put
Your virtual hand.
Don't worry about it. You're muted.
It's okay.
Okay. All right, so that's perfect. So 19 candidates. We're vetting down 9. And I'm not sure how many we're going to present to you on the 18th. It'll be dependent upon what we find out. We're certainly not going to, we're going to present to you who we believe are the best potential candidates for the position that night. And we will send you, let's see, that's on Thursday. No later than probably Monday, you'll get the applicant packets of what as well in terms of the individuals that we're going to share with you that night, so that you have the opportunity that week to review those packets in preparation for our presentation to you on the 18th. Okay?
Sure.
And we also, and not that I'm confident this isn't going to be a concern just with the work I've done with you, but you will also get, and Ms. Brown, I'll send that to you and you can figure out how others can sign it, but you'll get the confidentiality agreement that board members sign, saying that they're not going to release names and so on and so forth until the appropriate time. Now, we're fully aware that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because the next thing we have to talk about is if we have the meeting on the 18th and you say, okay, we agree, we want to interview these 4 candidates, you have time. You don't have to tell us now, but you need to determine when you want to interview those 4 candidates. So you have to determine that as a board. You can send me that information between now and the 18th, okay? And then you also want to start thinking about the community forums, right? Because I think in the first meeting, right, that you're going to have a community forums for 3 candidates. I think you talked about 3. You said preferably 3. It may not be 3. It may be 2. But I remember that clearly in terms of what you said, in terms of the process. So you'll have to come up with those 2 dates as well. And then the one other thing you should start working on between now and the 18th is each of you submit, and you should submit them to Ms. Brown, 3 interview questions that you would like to ask as a board member. Okay? If you can get, let's see, today is what? Today is Thursday. If you can get them to Ms. Brown by next Friday, which is the 12th, okay? And then Ms. Brown, if you can send me those interview questions, and then what we'll do is we'll talk about them, get them into an appropriate number, and the home office will format them for us as well.
Will do. So I'm going to go to Mr. Traber, and then I have a quick question for you, Mr. Ferry. Go ahead, Mr. Traber.
Yeah, in your presentation a few minutes ago, there seemed to be, and I was struck one to ask, 2 vetting phases, but now it sounds like there's only 1.
Well, for us, there's what we're going to do is, because we have 9 candidates, that's paper right now, that we think 9 of those 19 candidates on paper look like they meet the requirements, okay? But we want to make sure we speak with them and speak to their references to ensure which of those 9 truly do meet qualifications.
So then phase 2 you mentioned was the deep dive into records and everything else.
Then the next thing we'll do with those 6 candidates is we will even go deeper, and what we'll then do is, or let's say it's 6 out of the 9 or 5 out of the 9, we will then ask them to prepare the 9-minute video that we will show to you on the 18th, and we'll also do formal, they'll have to sign a waiver, and the home office will do a financial, criminal, and educational background check to make sure that everything they're stating on their resume and so on is accurate.
So if I understand correctly, then you have 9 right now that you think we're focusing on. And you're going to do a deeper dive, look at them with regard to their references and their, records that they claim that they've asserted on paper. And then you're going to pick a smaller number, which it was just stated as either 6 or 5, but could be some smaller number than 9,
Right.
which you will do a deeper dive on before the 18th.
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll present those candidates to you on the 18th.
Okay. I understand. Thank you.
Yes, and then I have a question for you. Oh, well, this is mainly for the full board. So if you look at your calendars, board members, if we're saying that the 18th will be the date that we review the candidates via videos, and I know we were aiming to make sure we can at least identify a superintendent by June. So I want to make sure that there's enough time in between. Should we be looking at having the next meeting early June? Ending of May? What is the best option for the board members to think about the next dates? Because I want to make sure we're not too far out from what we said as a board. Mr. Ferry.
I can give you some ideas. Like, for
Okay.
instance, when we present the candidates to you on the 18th, and again, some of this is hypothetical. I totally understand that. But let's say on the 18th, you say as a board, here are the 4 candidates we want to interview. Then I think if you want to meet your goals, you need to figure out a date during that next week, probably later in that next week, the 24th, 25th, 26th, somewhere.
That's what I was thinking that.
Yeah, I know that
That's
Memorial
okay.
Day. Yeah.
So board members, while we have this opportunity, the week of the 22nd should be our next meeting with the firm. Does anybody object to that? If we can start, and then I just need Miss Arlene just to make sure there's no meetings.
Let me clarify that. The week of the 22nd is when you want to have the actual interviews with the candidates.
Oh, okay, that's what you're saying. See, that was
So
my.
on the 18th, you want to pick who you're going to interview.
All right, so 18th and the 22nd is when we discuss as a board those candidates. Okay. So let's look at the dates. I want to at least give Dr. Ferry and them something to walk away with from tonight. What are we thinking, board members?
So I guess the question becomes, so on the 18th, let's say you identify 4 candidates, candidate A, B, C, and D. Here's who we're going to, then the consultants, Dr. Shelley Jones and Mr. Copeland and I, we have to contact those 4 candidates, and we have to tell them the Bridgeport Board of Education is going to interview you on, let's say, the 24th, and then give them a time and give them a location. So what you have to determine is if you as a board can do all 4 interviews in one day, or do you have to do 2 interviews on one day, 2 interviews on another? Because if you have to do them in the evening because of your work commitments and so on, you would probably have to do 2 on the 24th and 2 on the 25th. If you can set aside the whole day as a board and interview all 4, probably not, because everybody has responsibilities. So what you could do is agree to say, all right, the 24th and 25th, during these hours, we're going to interview 2 on the 24th, 2 on the 25th. And then at the end of the night on the 25th, after you've interviewed the 4 candidates, you want to determine, okay, here are the 2 or 3 candidates we're going to introduce to the community at those community forums. And I need to understand a little bit more how that's going to look. I mean, are you going to have all the candidates at the same forum, or does one come? How's that worked in the past for you?
I was not a part of the first one, so I'll lend that to Mr. Sokolovic. Go ahead, Mr. Sokolovic.
Yes, last time, actually process was derailed.
Right. I know.
Yeah, which you're fully aware of because you were the firm that was supposed to be interviewing them. So, and the time before that, how we handled it. If it's 3 or 4, I suggest going to the format that we had with the interim superintendent interviews, whereas we introduced them at the same time as we were interviewing them, and then the public would give us input after that. Are we planning on publicly interviewing the 3, or no? Because that's how we picked the interim.
That's your call. Yeah.
Because I think that would be the most transparent way. And I'm trying to think back to Dr. Johnson's interview, but I can't recall because that was the one before. But I always remember it was like a community forum / open interviews, and we had public comments, and public comments at that time was for the interim superintendent. Everybody said pick this person, they're the best. Pick this person, they're the best. And then we did the interviews, and then we actually scored afterwards and decided who the final pick was. I think I'm remembering that totally 100% correctly, but I could have a small detail wrong here.
I don't know. I don't know if anyone is opposed to that idea. I do see Mr. Traber's hand up, so I'll lend the floor to Mr. Traber. Go ahead, Mr. Traber.
Yeah, I'm sorry to go back a step, but
Okay.
on the 24th and 25th, we were in that time frame. We were talking about the interviews that we would have, and how long do you expect an interview would take?
Normally, we ask the boards to set aside an hour and a half for an interview.
Okay, all right. Then I was trying to understand why you were saying 2 on each night because I
Yeah,
would
because-
rather get all done on the same day. But I understand.
You can't get 4 in one night. Let's say you start.
No, I understand. If you, that's your, I mean, I haven't been through it enough to have a different opinion than that. So I defer to your experience on that.
So I was gonna suggest only because I know there are certain board members where Tuesdays may work a little bit better for them, just observing from committee times. Could it possibly be a Tuesday and Wednesday so that,
Sure, you could
for
do the
those
23rd, 24th.
yeah, I was thinking like the 22nd, 24th, I mean, Lord, I'm sorry, the 23rd or 24th. Does anybody oppose to that? Because I know we have some flexibility just want to make sure everyone can participate if they want to.
I'm okay with that today, Madam Chair.
Okay. I see you're real. Go ahead, Mr. Traber, sorry.
Tuesdays and Thursdays are generally bad for me, but I will always adjust. So
Okay.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, doesn't matter. I can
Okay.
do either.
Mr. Sokolovic?
Yeah, back to the points with the interviews being an hour and a half.
Wait. Because I want to make sure we at least solidify the dates so that you can continue on. So if everyone is okay with that, Miss Arlene, could you write those dates down too?
Are those in-person meetings or online?
They're online.
You want to do
So-
online? You want the interview to be online or in person?
Oh, we're not even talking about the other part of it.
I think on the 23rd and 24th, you're going to want to have the candidates in person.
Got it. Okay.
So that's very helpful to us because when we tell candidates that we're presenting them to you on the 18th, we can also tell them,
Got it.
hold the 23rd and 24th, should you be a candidate's being selected to be interviewed, that's when the board's going to interview you.
That makes more sense.
And that should be in person. You need to identify where. Some districts do it somewhere in the district. Some districts do it, they'll get a conference room in a local hotel, but that's your call. Whatever you want to do, you let us know. And we'll let them know. And you'll have the packets in advance. You'll have the interview questions, everything you need, you'll have. We'll organize all that for you and you'll have that. And normally, so what we'll do is 6 to 7:30 and then 7:45 to 9:15. And then we'll do that for each night. Let's say if there's 4, if there's 5, we'll have to add a third one night. That's totally up to you. And then on the 24th is when you'll deliberate and determine, okay, we're going to bring these 2 or these 3 to the community forum. Now, I'm not hearing clarity in terms of what you want that community forum to look like. You could have, I don't know, I'm brainstorming here with you, all right? So help me with this. Mr. Copeland and Dr. Shelley Holt, jump in, help me here. Don't let me take all the heat on this one, but you could do it.
Just 1 second. Before we move on, I just want to make sure I acknowledge everyone. So we're still on the dates. I see Mr. Sokolovic, I see Mr. David Tan, and I see Miss Arlene. So I'm gonna just go to Mr. Benahan first. Go ahead, Mr. Benahan. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to let you know that Dr. Jones, she's writing the message that she cannot open for those nights. So I just want to know, I don't know if she's got a problem with the mic, but she's writing in the message. So I
Okay.
hope she can make it. I just want to let you know that, Madam
That's
Chair.
okay. We can work around that. That's not a problem.
Okay. Mr. Jellum, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to take a step back, one more step back. Is it possible? Right, no, is it possible to do one day, or none of our schedules allow it?
I'll turn it to Mr. Ferry. So here's the thing. Hold on, Mr. Sokolovic, I'll get to you. I think the question is that depending on the question. So Mr. Ferry, what do you think if it is one day?
So I'm just finishing up working with another district, and they had 4, and they did it on, they're planning on doing it on one day, and it's on a Saturday.
Okay.
And it's a long day, but it's one day. They're interviewing all 4 on a Saturday and deliberating. They and for the same reasons they couldn't do it during the week because of work obligations and so on. So yes, you can do it in one day. But it would normally be on a Saturday if you wanted to do that. So that's up to you and your availability.
Okay. Mr. Sokolovic.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're all talking about 2 different interview processes. One interview process is to get down to the 2 or 3 people that will be presenting to the community. Yes. And I imagine we'll be asking most of the questions in that first one to vet them. So we should not have as many questions in the next interview cycle. We can pare down our questions to maybe make it a little more streamlined and to have the public just see what's going on and maybe present it just like that, because I really this being Bridgeport, the processes I have been through, I've not taken an hour and a half, but we've probably never done it correctly as a board since I've been here. So
I can give you a suggestion on what the community forum could look like, but let's determine if you're going to do it if you're going to do these first interviews the 23rd and 24th, or if you want to do it on Saturday.
Yes, that's kind of where I want to make sure we have an idea. So board members, do we want it during the week or do we want it on Saturday? What is the choice? So I'll go down the list. Ms. Cashmere.
Only because of work, 2 days back to back is going to be really difficult for me. I was going to ask if we could do one week and then do the rest of the interviews the next week, but that's just my suggestion.
Okay. Mr. Benahan?
I'm okay with anyone. I'm flexible, so I'm okay with anyone. Whatever the board decides, majority, I'm okay.
Okay, Mr. Traver.
I prefer the 2 nights. Saturdays I coach soccer, so that would be a commitment that I'd break. It's practices Tuesday and Thursday are coaching, but I also would not want to wait a week. I was concerned about having them 2 nights in a row, just because you interview 2 and you talk about those 2 for a day, or I know you may not, but it happens. You think about them and everything else, and I'd rather sort of get them done as quickly as possible, as close together as possible. So if you had to do the Saturday, I guess that makes sense, but 2 days in a row, 2 nights in a row that week, or that's Saturday, but that Saturday is Labor Day weekend. I don't know what that does to people.
So, okay, I'll come back with my comment for that. Ms. Baptiste Perez. Okay, we can come back to her. Mr. Sokolovic?
Yeah, just clarity. You mentioned the second set of interviews taking a couple of days, or are we discussing the first set of interviews for the couple of days?
We're discussing the first set. The first set. candidates.
Okay, yeah. So the first set, definitely we maybe should make it back-to-back days, and you're not presenting all, just let me refresh my memory. We're not presenting, we're gonna interview all 9, or we're gonna interview the five?
No.
Yeah, now.
We're gonna present, we'll probably
3 or
present
4.
5 or 6, and you'll interview 3 or 4.
Okay,
Okay.
that sounds good. But we will have all the resumes of the 9.
No, you'll have of the people that we're presenting. But if you want all 9, we'll give them to you, but we prefer that you have all the packets of the short list of candidates we're presenting to you. 4
Okay.
or 5.
Mr.
It's what you hired us for, right?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Jellum. Your thoughts on the dates?
Yes, I'm open to one day. Saturdays, if we start during the day, I take my children to sporting events, but I'll find alternatives. I'm open to one day during the week as well. I'll can work around my work schedule, if possible. So I'm open to any day once a week. If you need to do twice in 1 week, I'm okay with that as well. But I would prefer to do all the candidates, to interview all the candidates in one day. I think it would be better for deliberation and coming to a conclusion.
Okay. And in my opinion, I am not available on Saturday. I have a commitment to the youth, and I don't want to break that commitment. So it seems like mainly everyone could be more committed if we did it during the week. The question is, and I don't know, and I haven't been through this. So, Mr. Ferry, do you think? I highly doubt we'll be able to do 4 candidates in one night. But
No, I think you should go right back to holding the what was it, the 22nd and 23rd, or
yes,
hold it
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Tuesday and Wednesday.
23rd and 24th.
Hold it to the 23rd and 24th, and then let's say on the 18th, after we present the 5 or 6 candidates to you, and you all say, nope, there are 3 candidates that we want to interview. Then you could potentially do all 3 in one night. But to push it to 4, I think it's just too long, too late.
Got it. Ms. Cash, may I see your hand?
What time did he say that the first interview would start on these nights?
I have it start at 6. Does that work? Does that
That's
work?
it. I just asked the question. That's all. I just asked.
Could it be, is 6:30 too late?
No, you can start at 6:30.
Because this way, if anyone's traveling back and forth, we'll give them an opportunity.
Okay.
So Miss Arlene, I saw your hand. I just want to confirm, because she keeps the calendars of any committee meetings. Are there any conflicts for Tuesday the 23rd and then Wednesday? Are there any conflicts?
Right now, I'm looking at the calendar. I know Mr. Benahan is here. Mr. Benahan, are we having the student and family on the 25th? As discussed earlier?
Yes, the 25th, I'm gonna have a student family. That's a Thursday.
Okay, so then if you needed to add a day for whatever reason, I would think Monday on that week would work, if anything, because there isn't anything on for Monday. But the 25th, Mr. Benahan is going to have his meeting, so the 23rd and 24th are available.
Okay.
All right, perfect.
All right, so we'll have that set in stone. And once we get everything, Mr. Ferry will make sure we provide the updated information for Miss Arlene to prepare notices.
Okay.
All right. Now we can go back to what Mr. Sokolovic was talking about with the interview process for those candidates, those final candidates, how that's going to look in person. Wait, Miss Arlene, raise your hand again. Go ahead, Miss Arlene. Sorry.
I do apologize, no, thank you very much. Can I just give a real quick recap, because I want to make sure I capture the dates as appropriate. So my understanding is the board is to get you, Ms. Bobby Brown, the interview questions by May 12th.
Yes.
On May 18th, you're going to be holding the superintendent update search. That's going to be a private meeting between the board and the firm.
Yes.
And then on the 23rd, as of right now, 23rd and 24th of May will be for the interview dates.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for confirming.
Perfect. So can I make a suggestion? And then Mr. Copeland and Dr. Shelley Holt jump in here. So who do you invite to the community forum? Do you invite anyone who wants to come, or do you have invites?
It's last I remember when I came on the tail end, and board members, please disagree with me if so, if I'm not correct, it was open to everybody because, you know, anyone that wants to come can come. I don't know if there were questions asked from the public, but I'll ask Mr. Sokolovic because I wasn't a part of the process.
Okay, so I have a suggestion maybe that you might want to think about. Mr. Copeland, Dr. Shelley Holt, jump in. But let's say you're interviewing, you're going to have a community forum for 3 candidates, okay? What I would suggest is you have it at the high school, one of the high schools, and you have each candidate in a different location. Put one candidate in the auditorium, one candidate in the media center, one candidate in the cafeteria. And then as the people come in, give them a group number, group 1, 2, and 3, right? And you divide the community up as they come in into thirds, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So then what you do is you have them have all the 1s go to the cafeteria, the 2 goes to the auditorium, the 3s go to the media center, and for 30 minutes they interact with that candidate. And then they switch and they go to the next candidate for a half hour, and then they switch and they go to the third candidate. So you have an hour and a half where the community can interact with those candidates. Do they have a feedback form that they fill out for you? Because we have one we can send you where they fill out a feedback form, and then they can drop that off when they leave that night. You can have one person collect it and send it to you, and you can read the feedbacks. I think that's a way where I know sometimes it's uncomfortable when the candidates are all in the same room meeting with the community. That's uncomfortable. Mr. Copeland, Dr. Shelley Holt, any ideas?
I think what you've laid out works. There's another way you can go, and that's to have the community all in one location and have a set series of questions that all 3 candidates get. But you give the questioning, let's say 30 minutes to 40 minutes for the questions. When that candidate's done, you bring in the second candidate, they get the same series of questions, and then the third and so forth. So you don't have the candidates at the same time, but you don't have to have the community moving. It sort of depends on how many people you expect to participate. Otherwise, I think what Dr. Ferry has laid out, I've certainly seen work. It just depends on how many people you're going to have. But if you think you're going to have a decent group, it might be easier to just, but that does require some similarity in the questions to each 3 people so that it's not a sort of an unfair situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's an excellent model too. So you can use either of those 2 models.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm open up the floor. I see Mr. Sokolovic hand is raised. If you want to just lend your thoughts to the process in which both Dr. Ferry has acknowledged and Mr. Copeland has acknowledged. Go right ahead.
I like what they said, and it's somewhat similar thinking back to Dr. Johnson's because I got to ask questions and I also got to advocate for my choice before they interviewed. I was just getting ready to run for the board then, and then it was similar. But I'm just thinking if we have a very, very large turnout, which would be a great problem to have, if everybody asks a question, this could be exponentially going into like 24 hours possibly. So I think we need a process to allow the community to input and ask questions, but also to limit the number of questions, perhaps by some random, like say we get, God, I would love if we got 100, 200 people there, but we can't have 100 or 200 questions. So maybe a random poll of 5 or 6 questions selected by the firm that all the candidates would answer, rather, so we don't have an excess of questions in a long length of time. Does that make sense?
Yes. I'm sorry, Dr. Jones, we missed you. So go ahead, Dr. Jones, before I go back to the board. You're off mute, but we can't hear you.
Oh.
No. You may need to check if you're on your computer. You may need to check if your computer has allowed Teams access to your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So hello. Thank you. Something I was going to suggest, in addition to what Dr. Ferry and Mr. Copeland brought up, and it kind of speaks to what you were just saying, is that having a moderator for each room with an outline of the questions would be very useful to ensure that, because you could have 100 people there, you could have 5. We just don't know at this point. But having a moderator in there, because at the end of the day, remember that you want to invite people into the district, right? And sometimes people come and they're trying to ask this brand new person questions that they may not quite know yet, being a brand new person that is interviewing for the position. And so I would just suggest, I love Dr. Ferry's model that he just presented, but having a moderator in each room, or if you're going to do it in the same room, having a moderator in that room, either one of us or someone else that can keep the conversation going, and then also consider the questions. Because the thing with the question is it always ends up being a thing that people feel like their question wasn't asked. And so having people be able to submit questions ahead of time and then finding the themes within those is a way to help, glean what the community wants to know and then be able to have those questions answered. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you. And now I'll go through the board members just to continue to see your thoughts on either which way you, either Dr. Ferry's idea, Mr. Copeland's idea, or both, if none. Or if you have a suggestion, share your suggestion as well. Ms. Casimir?
I like the idea of just of not having the group of people move around. The second option.
Okay, so Mr. Copeland's suggestion.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Mr. Benahan.
I'm flexible. I'm okay for both ideas. Whatever the team decide, the majority, I'm okay.
Got it. Ms. Baptiste Perez says she was having trouble with her device. So I will acknowledge you if you are able to hop on and give your thoughts, or you can write it in the chat and we can read it out loud. So Ms. Baptiste Perez. All right, we can come back to her. Mr. Traber?
Yeah, I think I prefer the one room versus the multiple rooms. And I am concerned about unlimited questions. I can't believe I'm saying this because I always hated it when the League of Women Voters did the little cards and screened the questions. I hated it, but I am concerned about people using the question, the right to ask questions to, push their own agendas as to which candidates they like. I would like to see the process be objective so that each candidate has a chance to present themselves in their best foot and, without, any participants affecting that process. So I am not quite clear. This is new to me. I was not part of the original talk or board discussion on how you were going to do this. So I'm sort of trying to mull it over as I think about what you're laying out. So those are my 2 thoughts for now.
Okay.
If I can make a suggestion.
Go ahead.
So I think I agree with you. If you go with Mr. Copeland's model, what we can do is we can put 6 to 8 questions together, and you could say, here are the questions that were developed by the search firm. Okay. And we can gear those questions exactly to what we learned from the stakeholder meetings in terms of the challenges and the characteristics. And this way, when you have your moderator in there, takes you off the hook completely, saying, this is how we're going to conduct this interaction, and here are the questions that were developed and formulated by the search firm that are going to be asked of each of the 2 or 3 candidates, depending on how many you have, and your moderator will ask that question and the candidate will respond. This way, it addresses all those concerns that you have.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Mr. Jellum. Do you have any thoughts on any of the process ways that we will hold the community forum between Dr. Ferries and Mr. Copeland?
Good. Yep. So I like the idea of not having the public move around. If you're gonna, the candidates should move around, if anything. That's one of my thoughts. Secondly, we should have a time limit, but I do want to give an opportunity for the public to ask questions freely.
Okay. And then my suggestion for this is I as much as I really, really love the whole put the candidates in 3 different rooms, I'm just going to be honest, it can be a lot for them to be, moving around. We don't know people's disability. We don't know, if people will get confused. I just rather keep it all in one setting, and we can move the candidates, but not necessarily the people. The question part of it that I thought would be a good idea, I do want the community to have a specific question. Maybe it's not all of the community that gets to answer a question, but I think the community forum is really meant for if there is an opportunity for them to share their thoughts. I think that should be acknowledged. I give a perfect example. I was part of the police forum. And when they did it with the police forum in Bridgeport, they gave everyone an opportunity to answer questions. But I'm not sure during that process if any of the questions from the public were actually answered. Like you could hear your own question be said out loud. So I think if we give the firm an opportunity to create the questions, and the community would feel like, well, they're not us and they can't really speak on our behalf. So I definitely think we have to find a way where either another survey is another option on the type of questions, or let them submit questions, and then the firm sifts through them and see what best fits for the actual candidates. I think that would be best, because I think us creating them is keeping them out of being their own creative self and ask the questions. So that's just my thoughts. I'm going to go back to Mr. Sokolovic and then back to Mr.
Before you do that, Ms. Brown,
Yeah.
I think it's if I take your concerns and your concept, if you open it up to the community for a period of time, say we're going to have a community forum on these dates or this date, and if you have questions that you want to answer, give us your question. Now, your question may have to be altered because your question may be similar to 2 or 3 different people, and we're going to try and combine it. But you can get enough input to it so that there's some validity and there's some credibility from the community, but at the same time doesn't turn it into a situation where only a couple of people are really participating.
Got it. That makes sense. That makes total sense.
If I may, I just want to add in Arlene's comment. I just didn't want us to miss it because she put it in the chat since her vocals aren't working, or her sound isn't working. She said, if I may make a suggestion, if you hold it at the high school, have the screen pulled down and have the candidate sit in the main office and give a live interview projected in the auditorium. My suggestion, that way the community can give feedback via a scan code to be recorded in forms, and then she can have printouts that she can scan to you at the end of the meeting. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not sure what all that means, but and make sure you all saw it. And then, and in addition, when you do, if we were to do what Mr. Copeland said, and then have an opportunity at the end of the scripted questions, if you will, for 2 or 3 or 4 folks to come up to a mic and ask questions, you get the best of both worlds. Everybody doesn't get to ask their own unique question, but you get a sample of what the community would like, and then a few folks can ask some live questions. That's how we've done some of our police forums, and then, we move on to the next candidate.
Thank you. Mr. Sokolovic and then Mr. Traber.
Yes, I like the one room idea, and also Dr. Jones Holt's original suggestion of collecting the questions and grouping the like questions together. This way the community will feel involved by filling out a question on an index card and what have you. And then they could go through the index cards and group the like questions and just pick 5 similar questions and just explain to the public your specific question may not be asked. It can be, in the interest of time, we're going to group the questions together and try to get to as many as possible.
Got it. Mr. Traber?
Yeah, I would add, I realized when you made your comments, Madam Chair, that I wasn't clear. The League of Women Voters model is what Mr. Sokolovic just talked about, where you hand out index cards or some form that people can write their questions down on when they come in. And but the concern always from myself as a participant in a meeting like that was they only pick the softball questions. And so you want to make sure that we somehow want to avoid, the softball questions being the questions that anybody can answer, and they're geared towards particular candidates or particular people. So you want to make sure that the public feels comfortable that they're being heard and their questions are being addressed. And that's the balance I hear in Dr. Jones-Holt's effort to try and include both. And I did want to add that I meant to say earlier, I really like that idea at the end of allowing for a feedback form that we can review after people have left about how they felt about the candidates.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Dr. Ferry, Dr. Copeland, Dr. Jones, I feel like there's kind of consensus on the one room option, and then questions that the public can then ask, but we would also be mindful of grouping those light questions and really pulling some of, whoever's handling the index cards or whatever, give them an opportunity to pull out some of the good questions, not good, all of them are good questions, but the ones that are not as so much as the normal, same answer, same question that all candidates will have, but there should be a variety in there, whatever amount that we do choose. Does that kind of
Madam Chair, I think you have the shell of it right now.
Got it.
You can leave the tweaking of it until you see who the candidates are.
Got it.
And then you may want to tweak the final response. You've got time for that.
Perfect. All right, so we're moving. Mr. Ferry, while we were on that topic, we needed to select a community forum date. Because we did the other dates, I want to make sure we get the community forum date in there as well. So if we're agreeing, if we look at our calendar, board members, if we're agreeing that on that Tuesday, Thursday will be the interview sessions. So what should be the good timeline, Dr. Ferry? Is it like the week after, the beginning of June? Like, what is your thoughts?
So the interview dates, 23rd and 24th.
Correct.
Finalists, you could have the community forum the next week, either on the 30th or 31st or the 1st of June.
That's you're knocking up against Memorial Day weekend, I think.
It's after Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, is it after? It is. You're right. You're after Memorial Day weekend.
So
there is a meeting on the 31st that we just got notice of, an award ceremony. So it would be the 30th would be my, inclination there.
The 30th is contracts. That Tuesday, we always meet the last Tuesday, but I think if there aren't any pressing contracts, I don't mind holding off and putting that until June, so that, oh no, we can't because our June date school will be out. So my other suggestion, board members and Dr. Ferry, is maybe pushing that community forum in June, for either that first week of June.
How about June 6th?
June 6th is a Tuesday. What do we think, board members? I see you.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes.
We're going to be present at the community forum, right?
Yes.
Okay.
No? Oh, yes.
I don't see why you can't be. I don't know that
it's the expectation that we be there.
Thinking of here now.
I'm not just asking you guys, I'm asking the other board members.
I would hope so.
Does it create a problem in terms of a quorum if you're all in the same room on June 30th? I mean, on June 6th? Is that a quorum issue for you in Connecticut?
Not if I can't believe they're not going to be making any decisions.
I know sometimes, it depends on.
Yeah.
I just asked the question. I want to protect you.
I don't think it should be. I don't see Mr. Sokolovic shaking his head, so.
When you go to the awards banquet, if you don't worry about the quorum.
Right? Yeah.
Sometimes it's a quorum, sometimes it's not, as long as we're not discussing business.
Right. So as long as you're there, then I would suggest if one or two you're going to be there, then you certainly want to have the whole board there if possible.
Correct.
Best look. for you.
And I asked that question then because if that's the case, I am away for that weekend up to a memorial service for my brother who died years ago. So I will not be back until the 7th.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest the 7th.
That would be better for me.
I see no objections to that unless there's any board members that do. I see you, Mr. Sokolovic, go ahead.
Yeah, I got questions. I was thinking that the interview was going to take place on the same day as the community forum, and we would get input from the community before we interviewed the candidates and let them meet who we were interviewing.
So you want to do a switch it around?
Or, I mean, if we're talking about 3 candidates, interviewing 3 candidates at most for the final interview, right? And we figure an hour each interview, that's 3 hours, right? And if we have the community forum where the community can meet them the day before, we tighten up our timeline. The community forum could be maybe on the 24th, and they get their questions and stuff out the way. And then we do the interviews on the 25th, and our timeline is more concise and more constricted. Does that pose a problem of any sorts?
It's unlikely, but you might have 4. You might have a candidate that you don't want to put forward if you did the interview ahead of time.
All right. Again, I'm sorry, by the way. We're talking about the second round of interviews after we.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So you're going to give us 5, maybe 6, maybe 4, or whatever have you, and we're going to pare it down from there.
Okay.
So we
Gotcha.
could agree to leave it to the top 3 to be interviewed and take care of that problem right off the bat.
Run it back again, Mr. Sokolovic. I'm looking at the calendar, so run it back. What you're suggesting again?
All right, so let me go through the whole
confused,
timeline again because we seem to be intermingling the two dates. Okay, the first, they got 9 candidates currently that they're going to be looking at seriously vetting. They're going to present us a number of candidates, be it 5, be it 6, be it 4, and we're going to interview those on the 18th and 19th, and then we're going to pare those down.
No, we're not interviewing.
What am I missing?
viewing. Yeah, we're viewing their interview
We're
tapes.
just viewing their resumes
Yes, and their interview tapes.
and their interview tapes. Okay, misspoke there. So then from that point, we could pare it down to the final 3 candidates, correct?
Yes.
And then move those 3 candidates forward for an interview on the 25th after having a community. Wait, this is my proposal.
Oh.
There's no head shaking yet. Okay, so hold on. So let's get past the 18th and 19th interviews. We pared it down to 3.
Okay, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's not 18th and 19th. The 18th is one day. There's nothing on the 19th.
Okay, so it's the 18th definitely. So there's no 19th.
Yes.
The 18th is us reviewing the handful that they give us. They pare it down to and picking the 3,
Okay,
if
gotcha.
you will.
All right.
And the following week we interview the 3 or 4.
Correct. I suggest we leave it to 3 so we could keep the tight timeline. And then on the 24th, I would propose that we have the community forum for the 3. Let the public meet the 3. We'll have the public sentiments fresh in our mind when we interview them on the 25th. And if it's at 6:30, we'll be out by 9:30. Or Blair, I mean, it's a tough one. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm just concerned of pushing it past June 6th because then we got the overlap between the contracts.
I can give you my opinion on that. I'm hearing you that what you want to do, but shortening the timeline, in my view, personal view, is not as important as the thorough interview process. So to me, what you're suggesting is I would suggest that you keep what we have in place. See, because the 18th, you're gonna see a 9-minute video. You're gonna see the reference checks that we present to you. You're gonna see the resumes and all the questions they answered and so on. But you're really not gonna see, you as a board is really not gonna see them in person for an hour and a half like you would in an interview. So the concern there is if just by going over what we present on the 18th, if you want to then present some of those candidates to the public, that could be of a concern. So to me, what you're suggesting is to stay with what we have in place. The 18th, we present the candidates. The 23rd and 24th, you do, hopefully if it works the way we're talking about, either 3 or 4 interviews. And then you have the community forum on June 7th, okay? And then, let's say it's 3 on June 7th. Then you get the feedback forms, and then you have your final interview the next day on the 8th. Because then you're going to be able to look at those feedback forms, and you're going to have your final interview and really go into depth in terms of what you see. You want to see how they interact with the community as well on the 7th, right? And then on the 8th, you do your final interviews, and then you appoint whenever you can the next meeting, whenever your next meeting is. So yeah, there's a possibility of a little low overlap with the interim and so on. But personally, I think that's a better approach than to rush it. Mr. Copeland?
Yep, I agree.
So are we going to be interviewing the same candidates, the same 3 candidates twice?
Yeah, yes, but here's why. Maybe, maybe not. But maybe you're interviewing 4 or 5 during that first round on the 23rd and 24th. But then you're narrowing it down to maybe 2 or 3. Okay, and that second interview is, in my experience, again, Mr. Copeland, Dr. Shelley Jones, jump in. Is less formal. It's the opportunity you have more of a dialogue with those candidates to see if you feel comfortable with them as a board, okay? Because this is something I always refer to as a marriage now, right? And you want to make sure that you have that good feel with them in terms of that final interview.
Right.
When I work with candidates, aspiring superintendents, and they go for a second interview, I said, this is the one where they want to know that they're going to be comfortable with you through tough times and not so tough times, and that's a trust building period.
Got it. Yeah, you've allayed the majority of my concerns, and like I said, when I got this, the times we've gone through this before, it's never been proper. I was just a little confused about the second interview, because we've never even done that here. But the way you've explained it actually seems to make sense.
All right, Dr. Jones.
What I was going to just suggest, and I really appreciated this when I was hired as superintendent, is that second interview actually turned into a kind of a dinner conversation. So it was much less formal. It was much more of us getting to know one another. And so you may, after the community forum, you've interviewed the 3 candidates, you may, after the community forum, pare it down that evening, if you will, down to 1 candidate that you want to interview. You may just decide, okay, you know what, I saw that interaction, because at the other side of this is you also don't want to waste your time or theirs. And so by the time you get to that last interview, I'll be honest, mine was a dinner with all the board members. And it was actually a rotating dinner, if you will. It was almost like speed dating. So I did the first course with 2 or 3, then the second course with 2 or 3, and then the final dessert was with 2 or 3. And it was really a chance for us to get to know one another. And I feel like it was hugely fantastic to just get to know who these people were, because remember, the interview process is a 2-way street. They're interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing them. And you want to get to know whether or not, like, this is someone that you can get into a marriage with, right? And so just to think about how we want that last one to be. And again, this can definitely fit whatever Bridgeport wants to see happen. But that last interview is kind of your opportunity to say, okay, yes, like, we're going to, seal the deal, if you will.
I would just add, I appreciate the clarity for this. And, I haven't seen any more hands raised after the explanation from Dr. Ferry. So I think it's okay to, maybe go back to, the 7th and the 8th. So the 7th would be the community forum, correct, Dr. Ferry? Then the 8th would be the final interview, correct?
So you have the 7th would be your community forum.
Yes.
And then the 8th would be your final interview. And then we can tell these candidates, as we pare it down, keep the 7th and 8th open. All right. What's also then good is if they come to the community forum on the evening of the 7th, and then the final interviews are on the evening of the 8th, it might be good for you to have some kind of a school district tour for the 2 or 3 finalists on the 8th, where you can show them around, show them the buildings, show them the facilities, okay, so that somebody can tour them around Bridgeport. If somebody's coming from, I don't know, I'll use an example, Texas, right? They're going to be there. So, they would come, and that's a good thing to do on the day of the final interviews on the 8th. So if you could do that on the 7th and 8th, and then on the 8th, you're going to find out and you're going to know exactly who you want to offer this job to. And then you're going to go into negotiations with them and hire them at your next possible meeting as long as you come to contract negotiations.
So
now,
according to our Board of Ed calendar, our next meeting would be on Monday, June 12th.
Well, that's a tight timeline to have a contract negotiated, but
I'm just saying based off of our calendar, and that's actually that's the last meeting before vacation.
Right. So you might have to special
unless
meeting.
you move it back, Dr. Ferry, to, I mean, I always said the 7th and the 8th, but if you move it back to the 1st and the 31st and the 1st.
I was thinking that.
And then you do the following week to have, kind of some deliberations and the chance for the contract negotiations, then you can hit the 12th. And remember that there is, I hate to bring this up because it does happen though, there's a chance that the contract negotiations, they may not accept and you have to go to your second choice. And you said you wanted to have this done by the end of June. You just want to give yourself might want to give yourself a tad bit of wiggle room. Just kind of throwing that out there.
Okay, so before I go, okay, never mind. I will hold my opinion and I'll come back. So, Mr. Traber?
I'm not opposed to that, except that I'm flying to California on the 1st for the memorial service that weekend. So I just won't. I could do it the 30th and 31st.
Okay,
couldn't do
that's a good compliment.
But the 31st is this award ceremony. That's the problem with the 31st.
You can do the 30th and 31st. I mean, that would work.
Except there is an award ceremony currently scheduled
for the 30th,
on the 31st.
Oh, on the 31st, right? So that wouldn't work for you.
So that will leave us with the 30th. Mr. Sokolovich?
Okay, yeah. Hold on. I just lost my train of thought. Come back to me, please.
Okay. So if you did it the 7th and 8th, right? And I know you have a meeting on the 12th, right? When is your graduation?
The 12th, that morning.
The high school graduation on the 12th?
Yep, all day.
Could you hypothetically call for a special meeting the week of the 19th?
I personally am out of town the last 2 weeks of June. So I will not be.
Can you call for a special meeting, let's say on the 15th, that Thursday, if you had to?
I'm not opposed to it.
All right, so here's where we can help you. We don't negotiate, but here's how we can help you. At some point in time between now and the 18th, or now and the 23rd, now and the 18th, you have to give us at least some parameters in terms of contract, salary range, that kind of thing, length of contract. Right, I'm sure there's some standard stuff in the contract in terms of benefits, things like that. These are the questions that we ask boards. Is there a willingness for a moving expense if somebody's coming from far away out of state? These are things that you have to discuss in terms of what you want to do as a board. Because the candidates are going to start asking us when we get down to the nitty gritty. And we don't give them specific numbers, but we at least give them some ranges. And we do tell them, look, this is negotiated between you, your representative, and the board and their representative. But having some parameters, I think, always helps streamline the contract negotiations process. And one of the things, and we just had this conversation with a board last week, one of the things that's most important, and it's important to your community because we heard it in terms of what the characteristics they desire is, the length of the contract is important. particularly if somebody's coming from out of state or they're coming from another superintendency. They're going to want some job security. So there are two things that are important: the length of the contract, and the other thing is, and we'll mention this along the way as well, but the other thing that's important is that you get consensus as a board that this is our candidate. All board members, here's our candidate, and that you can unify behind that person.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to our hands that are raised. Mr. Traber, do you like to add any further comment?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't take mine down.
Okay, Mr. Sokolik, I see your hand raised. Would you like to
Yes,
add
and I remember what I wanted to say. It was about the contract negotiations and the timeline for starting the contract negotiations and picking the superintendent on the June 12th. And just the agenda item on June 12th should probably read how it's read in the past. Approve of such and such candidate to enter into contract negotiations or with our legal firm or some such
Right.
language like that.
You
And
write
then they would do that. But we'd probably have to sit down with legal beforehand and tell legal our parameters for the negotiations prior to June 12th. So
Right.
they know how far they can go and not. And then while they're negotiating that, when they finish the negotiations, we can schedule a special meeting after that to approve the contract.
And what Dr. Ferry is talking about, at some point during the process, you can ask the candidates for what's called a term sheet. What are the terms that you're looking for? What are the most important things? So at least you get an idea as to where they are also.
Right, and then we could bring that to legal to set the parameters.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go back one more time because we still haven't selected a date for this particular part for the candidate. I know we were saying, potentially the 7th or the 8th of June. No, we agreed to the 7th and 8th of June, but the selection of the candidate, right? That's where we at? Just want to make sure.
So the 7th would be your community forum.
Yes.
The 8th would be your final interview.
Yes.
The 12th, you have a board meeting. And
Yeah.
you can put on that board meeting that you're recommending this particular, the board is approving this particular candidate to go
Got
into
it.
contract negotiations. And then hopefully those contract negotiations go smoothly. And the more we do up front in terms of knowing that the parties are pretty close together, that should make it very smooth. And then you can have a special meeting on the 15th if the contract is done to approve them, or at some point after that. But the sooner you get the person approved, the better. I know that's important to you.
I think the 15th is doable. Obviously, we would have to really talk to legal and stuff like that, but I just want to make sure that we're all in the same page. So I'm going to read it back one more time for everybody, just to make sure we're all on the same page. On the 18th is us reviewing the videos of the candidates. The 22nd, the 23rd, and the 24th is us doing the candidates. I'm sorry, what is our 22nd, 23rd, 24th?
That's the interview of this. We'll call them the semifinal interviews.
The semifinal interview. Perfect. Then we're gonna go hop into June. By the 7th is the community forum.
Yes.
The 8th is the final candidate, final interview candidate.
Yes.
The 12th is our regular board meeting with a potential agenda item for the contract.
Right.
And then the 15th is a special meeting to go over the contract.
Well, hopefully,
Finalize it.
if you have an agreed upon contract to approve it. Yeah.
Execute the contract. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Everybody has those dates. I see some dates popping up in the group chat, in the chat. So, okay. Thank you, whoever's putting that in there. I can't see who you are. All right.
Dr.
So
Shelby
now
Jones.
we got the dates. Now let's go back. Let's finish out, because I know, Dr. Fair, you may have some more stuff left on your agenda, but if we covered it all, then okay. But if not, I'm turning it back to you.
Yeah, we covered it all. And the other thing was by Friday, they're going to get you the interview questions.
Yes. Okay. So that covers everything. Are there any further questions from the board? Any further questions? Mr. Sokolovic?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Benahan?
Did you read Ms. Arlene? She writing in the chat. I'm a little confused. To say June 12, 2023 high school graduation as well.
Yes. Yes, so we
Okay.
do graduation as board members, and then right from graduation is in the meeting.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
It's a full day. It's a full day. I took the day off.
We have to do it. No problem with that.
All right. Now, Mr. Sokolovic.
Yeah, final thought. Way back to the interview questions that the board submits.
Yes.
I would recommend that we all submit our questions to the firm rather than to the chair. No disrespect to the chair or any other board members, but in the past, in this past round, there has been accusations of superintendents and candidates for interim, untrue accusations that have received questions in advance. If the firm is in possession of all the questions, the only questions that could be questioned as having been shared is people's personal questions. Does that make sense?
I hear you. It makes sense. I do hear it where you're coming from. But I think what will be, I won't even say what I think. I'll leave Mr. Ferry to give your thoughts to Mr. Sokolovic's point.
I mean, you can do that. I just don't want to miss. I get a million emails, and I don't want to miss somebody's questions when they submit them.
I also understand what the board member is saying. I don't know that process would. Assuming everybody is going to act with goodwill, I mean, if somebody's going to act with ill will, that process wouldn't stop it necessarily, or at least the accusation.
Correct. And it could be said that we've talked to each other about the question or talked to anybody. So it could be said either way. I think the suggestion was to streamline it, making sure it's all in one place and sent to.
That was a suggestion.
It's the quickest way, and then right, Dr. Ferry, we'll get that from the board chair, and we'll still have we're still going to probably try and combine them and smooth them out. Correct?
Yes, we're going to combine them, and then we'll send them back to you for one last examination.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is, and obviously we're hoping, you can certainly correct us if we're wrong, but the work we did in the Zoom meetings, the Teams meetings with all the groups throughout the community and all that, we really worked hard, and I know my colleagues did as well, to establish our reputation with your city and the residents. And we agree. We want this to be absolutely done above board with transparency. So that's a good point. But when you see the questions after you submit them through your board chair, I can assure you, and I'll say this because I know this is streamed, I can assure the community that we are going to do the very best to ensure that those questions match up what we heard from the meetings with the stakeholders and with the criteria in the description of the position.
Okay. I'm going to go to Ms. Cashmere, then I'll come back to you, Mr. Traber. Ms. Cashmere?
Yeah, this is just in the interest of myself, because my son is graduating from college. I got to work most Tuesday nights. So I have a very important question. The meeting on the 18th, is that meeting online? Is online an option for that meeting?
It is.
We'll do it online.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the interviews for the 23rd and the 24th is online an option there or no?
That's in person, but
that's in person.
In the event if one board member can't be there in person, I think you can have that person there via Teams or Zoom.
The board member?
Yes.
Okay, because that's exactly what's going to have to happen with me. And then the next one after that, I'm sorry, the next one after that is which one is the next one after that?
7th.
Oh, and then that's June 7th and 8th, right?
Yep, and then the 12th is our regular meeting.
Okay, the community forum is the 7th, and the 8th is the final candidate interview.
Yes.
Okay, no, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Traber.
I'm gonna do a Mr. Sokolovic for a second and pass to him because I was listening to Ms. Casimir and lost my train of thought.
Okay, all right. So, you're back, Joe. You have a question.
Yeah, I still want to follow up on that. I mean, every interview process I've done, with superintendent. We come up with our own questions and ask them, and it's never been vetted through a secondary body at all. And oftentimes I don't come up with my questions until I see all the interviewees and their pluses and minuses. And if there's a trending thing through the interviewees that I would like clarity on to pick between the interviewees, I'd like to be able to ask my question on the spot. Doesn't necessarily have to be, because it's my question. It's what I want answered, and I don't want to filter through anybody. And I represent the 100,000 voters in the city of Bridgeport, and I would like to keep that independence to be able to ask my own questions in my own manner. But choosing the most important thing as a board member that I choose without having it vetted by anybody.
I can clarify that concern. Thank you. We had just that happen last week. And when we presented our candidates to another board, and a board member had a particular question that board member wanted to ask, so we adjusted the interview questions and included it. So if you have questions that night after you see the candidates and you want to include your question included, if it's not there in the group, we'll include it.
Okay.
Can I echo that just a reminder that you have the first interview and then you have your final interview. And so typically that first interview, the questions are all the same. When you get to that final interview, if you like, that can be a little bit more loose, where you do get to ask whatever question. Usually sometimes they're different for each candidate, because you have different things that you want to know about that particular candidate. So just keep that in mind as well, that that there are two opportunities, if you will, for you to get your personal questions or concerns addressed in this process.
Thank you. Mr. Traber?
Yeah, what I was going to ask, it's sort of, I'm glad Mr. Sokolovic went first. I had no problem submitting the questions to the chair by next Friday. I do have I realized what was sort of percolating inside of me is what Mr. Sokolovic just raised, which is we're not going to see the resumes and the brief interviews of the finalists until the 18th. And I may have a completely different question that pops into my head after I see that, and say, oh my God, I want to know more about what this person, and it's not going to be a same question. And when you say, Dr. Jones-Holt, that, the second interview would be the place you do that, the second interview is a place where you guys are saying we may go from 5 down to 2 candidates, correct? And in which case, yeah, that is a place where I want to make sure that if I see something, I want to make sure that gets addressed with a particular candidate before I say, okay, I'm good with this person, because there just may be something in their background that I want to know more about, or that person I want to know more about. So I sort of understand the generic questions, or the uniform questions, not generic, that you're talking about in the first round of interviews, the 23rd and 24th. But I think there has to be that ability to sort of dig a little deeper with a particular individual if you have an area that you want to be comfortable with. And it, I think, goes to what you said, Dr. Jones-Holt, about your dinner date, your speed dating, where you're sort of getting a chance to say to somebody, tell me more about this. Talk to me more about your experience here. Talk to me more about, what you did here.
So it's all about a certain level of balance. If the interviews are not somewhat systemic for every candidate, then you may focus in on one thing and then you never heard what anybody else had to say about something else.
Yep.
And so that's the reason for it. I've never had a situation where a board member couldn't ask a follow-up or clarity around a particular question. But I'd be nervous if it were just so open that you had 4 separate interviews for 4 separate people, yes, and then you don't have anything to you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's what I was going to emphasize as well, that we really highly recommend as a firm that for the first interview, each of the candidates gets asked the same questions so that you can really keep the interview standardized. And I agree with what Bob said in terms of follow-up questions, certainly you can ask those, and you should. But you really get the deep dive and in that final interview when you can ask, much more pertinent.
And the other reason that I think, some of the questions that I've seen, sometimes I'll say to the board, you're going to get a platitude on that one. You want to you want to make sure that the focus of the question requires somebody to give you a legitimate answer and not a speech. And so there's that balance that you want also, if I'm making myself clear.
Right, because you can ask a candidate a question and then they'll give you about 20 minutes of why that question is such a great question. I've seen it happen.
That's a really good point, Dr. Jones.
I've done it, so.
Okay. Ms. Brown, you're muted.
Sorry, Mrs. Sokolovic, your hand is up again.
Yes, sorry.
No, not like that. I'm sorry.
No. I just want to. Most of my question was answered while I had my hand up, but question. This goes back to having done this before and maybe not necessarily in the best effective way in my tenure at the board. We've always had to ask. I'm not sure if it's just practice or rule that was supposed to be abided by, that we had to ask the same question of each candidate, that we couldn't vary between candidates. So for instance, if one candidate has a questionable background, if we ask that person about that questionable background, we would then have to ask background questions, or something like we have a union leader, like somebody who used to be part of the union. That was a question that I actually tailored towards one candidate because he had been the president of a union, and then he would be stepping into the superintendent spot. So I had to ask everybody if they would be able to be, wow, I lost the word, neutral in judging the people that he used to advocate for. And I had to ask that question of all three candidates, even though that question was only really tailored to find out that one piece of information. So are we required to ask the same question, or is it?
It's what we highly recommend in the process.
Okay, so just one question. It makes sense because that's the way we've been doing it.
And
it feels right.
We work for you, and we want to make sure that we also look out for you as well.
Yeah. So we have been doing it a best practice by asking the same question.
Yes.
Okay.
It really does protect you in the long run, because I've actually seen situations where boards have gotten themselves in trouble, districts have gotten themselves in trouble with having different questions. But when you get to that second interview, though, and if that person makes it and you have that question in the conversation, then it's free game. Then you're just having a conversation. You're going to ask them, hey, can you be impartial? I saw your union background. Talk to me a little bit about that. And then it's a very different feel in that space. So just know that there will be an opportunity. As a board member, you will have the opportunity to truly get to know these people on a very deep level throughout this process.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr. Tabor?
Yeah, I mean, given the fact that I have that union background, I would think, Mr. Sokolovic, that one of the generic questions or, common questions that'll be asked in the first round of interviews would be about your experience in dealing with labor unions, because here in the Northeast, they're going to have to. If they're coming from Texas, they may not have. So there will be some question that'll get us an idea of that. I assume it'll be in their resumes too, that we have some sense of it. But that'll be a question that we want to ask, because they're going to have to deal with the unions here. And we want to know what their experience has been. And then when you get to that second, I would assume that you're going to be able to talk and say, I see you were an officer of the union. That's a different background. That's not just being a member, but that's being an active participant in the union.
Thank you. Ms. Baptiste Perez.
Sorry, I've been in and out, guys. But my question is clarification, because I've been in and out. I heard Miss Dr. Jones-Holt mentioned that second interview is the one where we can be a little bit more candid in asking questions like the labor union involvement. That second interview, is that being referred to the final round interview that's the 8th of June, or is that the semifinals because there's preliminary interviews? So I don't completely grasp the timeline. So I just want to know which date we can be a little bit more candid with the type of questions we're going to ask.
That would be the 8th.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, I don't see any other hands raised. And I believe we've covered all the items Mr. Ferry has brought before us. And I see Mr. Travers' hand. Sir, you have the floor.
I just wanted to make sure Ms. Baptiste Perez got her question answered about the timeline. Because when she said she had been in and out, she might have missed the review of the timeline that we laid out. So I just thought it would be worth it to go back over it once more. If Ms. Baptiste Perez wanted it.
May I comment just because I in terms of timeline, I think I got it. May, there's going to be a video review on the 18th, the 22nd to the 24th. They're going to be semifinal interviews. June 7th, we're going to have a community forum. And then on the 8th is the final round interview where we can be more candid with our questions. We're going to have our regular board meeting immediately after graduation on the 12th. And then the 15th, we should finalize and approve. And sometime before the 15th or even the 12th, we have to meet with legal regarding the terms. Now, if I got that right or wrong.
You have absolutely correct, Ms. Baptiste. That's not what I have in my note.
No, the 23rd and 24th, not the 22nd and 23rd.
Right.
23rd. Yeah, 23rd and 24th.
Is the round of interviews. The 18th is the special meeting to look at the videos and resumes.
Yeah, 23rd, 24th is going to be person. Like Dr. Ferry say, maybe you could do somebody for team. Right?
Yes, I think Miss Arlene put it in there. It is an option if we chose that Monday. I think that's what that is. If we didn't do it on that Tuesday, but the Monday she did mention was open if that was the case. All right, Mr. Benahan, would you like to ask your question?
No, I was say something, but Mr. Travers says exactly to everything the date, so everybody be in the same page and everybody know. I know Ms. Arlene gonna send all the dates. It's a lot of dates, so I want to be sure I did take my note to be sure everything is right. Because I know parents will ask questions after we finish in a special meeting. So I had to have everything correct. I can tell the parent the correct answer. So that's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. If there are, okay, Mrs. Sokolovic, I saw your message. So I will, if you want, do you want me to say it or you want to say it? You're muted, sir.
Yeah, I'll do it because there's another piece to it. So for clarity, clarification, May 18th will be a meeting of the search committee, not a special meeting. So it's not going to notice. It's going to be the interviews quietly. And I believe we didn't discuss whether the semifinalists should also be the search committee as well, because I'm sure if there's 6 or whatever have you, they don't want their resumes out there either.
So then
the finalists will be public.
Got it. So we have 2 meetings of the committee. 2 meetings of the committee, not special meeting. All right. All right. If there are no further questions, I see no further hands raised. I believe we have all the dates that have been prepared. Miss Arlene will be Miss Arlene, Tim, and Dr. Ferry will make sure all the notifications are sent out to all board members. The portal will be updated with any information for any of these meetings. I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Benahan, second by Ms. Cashmere. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
No, I want to ask more questions.
Okay, Mr. Sokolovic.
Too late.
Everyone, the ayes have it. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye.
God bless you all. Bye-bye.